Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be tackling a concept that's, well, it's absolutely crucial for anyone who's interested in Indian politics and law.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially for those of you who are preparing for the UPSC exams.
Yes, definitely.
We're talking about the basic structure doctrine of the Indian Constitution.
Okay, so this doctrine, it essentially says that while the Indian Constitution can be amended,
Yeah.
there are certain core principles that are so fundamental,
Right.
they just can't be altered.
Okay.
It's like, when you have a building with load-bearing walls,
Yeah.
you can renovate, you can redecorate,
Mm-hmm.
but those walls,
got to stay.
they have to stay intact.
They're holding the whole thing up.
Exactly.
Okay, so think of the basic structure as those load-bearing walls.
Yes.
Now, what's so interesting to me is how this concept kind of emerged.
Yeah.
It wasn't just there from the start.
Right, exactly. It evolved over time.
Okay.
Through a series of, I guess you could say, intense legal battles between the Parliament and the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So the Parliament exercising its power to amend the Constitution,
Right.
and the Supreme Court acting as the guardian of its fundamental principles.
Okay, like a tug of war.
Yes, very much so.
And for our UPSC folks out there, this is where all those landmark cases come in.
Exactly.
So where does the story begin?
Well, it begins with Shankari Prasad back in 1951,
Okay.
where the court initially upheld the Parliament's power to amend even fundamental rights.
Okay, so round one goes to the Parliament,
Yes, you could say that.
but then comes Golak Nath.
Ah, yes, Golak Nath, 1967.
16 years later.
That's right. And this is where the court kind of reversed its stance.
Huh.
They said fundamental rights couldn't be taken away, even through amendments.
So they flipped it?
They flipped it, yeah.
Round one to the judiciary.
It seems so, but Parliament didn't just back down.
Oh, I bet they didn't.
No, they came back with the 24th Amendment,
Uh-huh.
reasserting their authority to amend any part of the Constitution.
Okay, so back and forth.
This back and forth is
Yeah.
really crucial for understanding the tension and the evolution of legal interpretation in India.
Okay, so then we get to the big one.
Yes.
The case that truly set the stage for the basic structure doctrine.
That's right.
Kesavananda Bharati,
1973, that's the one.
1973.
This is where the Supreme Court kind of dropped the bombshell, you could say.
Okay.
They acknowledged the Parliament's power to amend, but they drew a line in the sand.
Uh-huh.
They declared that there's a basic structure to the Constitution that cannot be touched, even by amendments.
Whoa.
This was a real watershed moment
Yeah.
in Indian constitutional law.
Okay, so we've got this basic structure that's untouchable.
Right.
What exactly is it?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, is there like a master list engraved somewhere?
If only it were that simple.
Oh, okay.
There's no fixed, exhaustive list. The Supreme Court has, over time, identified various elements as part of this basic structure.
Okay.
But the list, it's dynamic.
Meaning?
It evolves. It's not set in stone.
So what are some of the, I guess, key elements that they've identified so far?
Sure, think of it as the core DNA of Indian democracy.
I like that.
All right, so we've got the supremacy of the Constitution itself. It's the ultimate rule book, right?
Right.
Then there's the secular character of the state,
Uh-huh.
ensuring that there's no favoritism towards any religion.
Right.
And, of course, the classic separation of powers,
Yeah.
the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary.
Got to keep them separate.
Exactly, keeping any one branch from becoming too dominant.
So it's like checks and balances.
It is. It's like a checks and balances system,
Yeah.
making sure no single entity holds all the cards.
And this is what I think is so fascinating.
Yes.
For anyone who's interested in Indian politics, not just UPSC aspirants,
Absolutely.
is that this basic structure really protects the core values of democracy.
It does.
It ensures that even if a particular party or ideology gains a majority, they can't just completely rewrite the rules of the game.
Exactly. They can't just do whatever they want.
Let's suit their agenda.
Exactly. It's a safeguard against those in power going too far.
It is. It's a really crucial concept.
And we haven't even gotten to some of the other essential elements considered part of the basic structure.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yes. We've got federalism, the unity and integrity of the nation, free and fair elections, the independence of the judiciary, and the rule of law.
Oh, wow.
These are the cornerstones
That's a lot.
of a functioning, just, and equitable society.
All right, so we've got this really intricate web of principles
Yes.
forming the bedrock of Indian democracy.
That's a great way to put it.
But how has this basic structure actually played out in real life?
It's a great question.
Can we dive into some specific cases where this concept took center stage?
Let's do it. All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into India's basic structure doctrine.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of it.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's look at some landmark cases, because it's one thing to understand the theory,
Right.
but seeing how it works in practice is really eye-opening.
Absolutely. And one case that really stands out, I think especially for our UPSC enthusiasts out there, is the Indira Nehru Gandhi case from 1975.
Oh, yeah, I remember this one from my UPSC prep.
There you go.
It involved an attempt to kind of change the rules of the game, right?
Exactly, to protect the prime minister from legal challenges.
Right, to shield the prime minister.
Precisely. So the 39th Amendment Act tried to shield the election of the prime minister from being challenged in court.
Wow.
But the Supreme Court, upholding the basic structure doctrine, stepped in and declared this amendment invalid.
So they essentially said, hold on, even the prime minister is not above the Constitution.
Exactly. That's a very powerful statement.
It is.
About the limits of power.
Yeah, you can't just change the rules because you're in charge.
No, not at all.
That's a big deal.
It really reinforced the principle of free and fair elections as a cornerstone of Indian democracy.
Oh, for sure.
It showed that even the highest office in the land is subject to the rule of law.
This is why this stuff is so important.
Absolutely.
You know, for anyone who's interested in Indian politics.
Yes.
This isn't just some theoretical concept.
It's not just an academic exercise.
It has real-world implications.
Exactly, for how power is exercised and how rights are protected.
And speaking of landmark cases, we can't forget about Minerva Mills.
Yes, Minerva Mills, 1980.
1980, that's a big one.
That's a crucial one, especially for understanding the limits on Parliament's power.
Okay, so break this one down for me, because I remember this one being a little bit complex.
All right, so in this case, Parliament, through the 42nd Amendment, tried to give itself almost unlimited power to amend the Constitution.
Wow, so they were basically trying to change the rules of the game.
Yes, imagine trying to change the rules of a game so that you always win.
Yeah, that wouldn't be very fair.
Not at all, and the Supreme Court agreed.
Oh.
They struck down this provision of the 42nd Amendment, asserting that giving Parliament absolute power would essentially allow it to override the very essence of the Constitution.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Including judicial review, which is a vital check on legislative power.
So even Parliament's power to change the Constitution has its boundaries.
It does. Minerva Mills firmly established that Parliament cannot make itself all-powerful.
Right.
And that the basic structure doctrine acts as a safeguard against unchecked legislative authority.
So important.
Very important.
These cases really highlight the significance of the basic structure doctrine.
They do.
You know, in protecting the core principles of our democracy.
It's like a safety net.
Yeah, it's like a safety net, ensuring that the fundamental values of our nation are not just swept away by changing political tides.
Exactly. It's a testament to the vision of the framers of the Constitution and the judiciary's role in interpreting and safeguarding its essence.
And what's really cool is how this doctrine continues to evolve.
Yes, absolutely. It adapts. It adapts to the challenges of our time.
It's like a living organism.
It is. It's constantly growing and changing.
Yeah, but staying true to its core identity.
Exactly.
Okay, so I have a what-if question for you.
All right, I love what-if questions.
What if Parliament tried to do something really drastic?
Okay.
Like, let's say, hypothetically, abolishing elections altogether.
Okay, that's a big one.
Could the court step in and say, wait a minute, that violates the basic structure?
That's a great question, and it really goes to the heart of why the basic structure doctrine is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, in such a scenario, it is highly likely that the court would intervene, arguing that free and fair elections are a non-negotiable part of the basic structure of Indian democracy.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's reassuring to know that these fundamental aspects of our democracy are protected, even in hypothetical extreme scenarios.
Yeah, and you know, we have all these real-life examples. We do.
I mean, there's so many other cases where this basic structure doctrine has come into play.
That's right.
And has really shaped the legal and political landscape of India.
It has.
I mean, from S.P. Sampath Kumar to Quixote Holohan to S.R. Bomai.
The list goes on.
The list goes on and on.
And on.
We could easily spend another episode diving into those.
We could, but for now, let's move on to our concluding thoughts on this fascinating concept of the basic structure doctrine.
Welcome back to our final part of our deep dive. I feel like we've covered so much ground.
We have. It's been pretty extensive.
You know, from that historical tug of war between Parliament and the judiciary
Right.
to those